Well, sourcing the best talent has arguably never been more important than right now. JobAdder is a global recruitment software solution, and they've released its 2021 agency trends report showing an extraordinary recovery for hiring in Australia and New Zealand this year. For more, let's bring in CEO Martin Herbst of JobAdder. Welcome into Ticker News today.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
So tell us what you've seen here in terms of these numbers, and have they come of a bit of a surprise to you?
Yeah, an absolute surprise. So what we've been seeing is that Australia saw a 29% increase in new jobs in Q1 relative to Q4 of last year. And then new jobs in New Zealand even jumped a bit further at 47% versus last quarter. Just to comment essentially how we're getting this data. So we've got a job sort of recruitment software platform. And so we've got a very significant sample size. We placed about 230,000 jobs just last year. So we've been doing this report for the last couple of quarters now. And when the team came up with the stats a few weeks ago, even I had to ask them to double check the numbers because they were just really eye-popping. And that is, quarter over quarter numbers. If you look at the year over year numbers, because if you think about it, Q1 versus Q1 of 2020, that's pre-COVID type of market circumstances. And even those numbers are quite impressive. So we saw in Australia, again, the overall job orders, so essentially jobs created, jumped 21%, and then New Zealand, 39%. So, what's happening, I think, is that, the economy is back. We've got companies who are much more confident coming out of COVID. There's a few reasons for that confidence. We've got a vaccine rollout that's underway at the moment. We've proven that we can successfully work through the pandemic, through lockdowns, in some cases even succeed beyond our expectations in working through this lockdown type of measures. And plus, of course, the government stimulus. So, I think a lot of this is just, there's a spring in companies' step. There's a lot more confidence that's coming to the market, and we're seeing this in the numbers right now.
So tell us about permanent placements as well. I believe they rose both Australia and New Zealand. So what can you attribute this to? And tell us what does it mean exactly by permanent placements?
Yeah, so we look at both permanent placements, which is essentially full-time, long-term employment. We also have a lot of jobs that come through which we qualify as temp. These are temporary positions, they're contract positions, et cetera. And a lot of times when you go through an economic downturn, you don't see much of a rebound in permanent placements. You see, if there's anything that you see as part of during that economic downturn or coming out of it, you'll see quite a rise in temp placements or contract jobs because companies are being a bit more cautious and conservative in how they actually hire and how much they want to invest back into labor. We're seeing, which is even probably more positive, is that the permanent placements are also increasing by quite a bit. So I think in Q1, they rose by 22% versus Q4, which is really encouraging because, essentially the companies are hungry to invest back into talent. I think what they've been spending the last few months on have been increasing productivity with technology, for example. I just saw something on the news about the robotic dyno. I think that's a great example of, leveraging technology to get more productivity. But, we need people. We need workers to come back.
Totally. So just to finish, what tips do you have for people out there, job seekers, to get back inside and get in the market?
Yeah, I think it's so right now, from a recruiter perspective, it's not a demand issue; it's a supply issue. From a candidate perspective or from an employee perspective, it's a seller's market. So there's lots of opportunity out there. There are a lot of jobs that are available. So my advice would be just take your time, do your research, do your homework. It's a good time to walk, not to run into that next role. And one thing I would do, my advice, and this is something that I did as well, because I just joined the company about 10 months ago, and that was kind of a sublime experience, joining the company during COVID, not really meeting anyone in person as part of being recruited into the company. Do your homework and see how did that firm, how did that company, how did that business, how did they respond in the last 12 months to COVID? What were they like in a moment of crisis? And how are they, prepared to weather the next storm? Yep. So take your time and do your homework.
Yeah, really good point. How do we learn a bit more about what you're up to at JobAdder?
Well, we have a website, JobAdder.com. We've got lots of stuff that's coming up. That's both for recruiters on the agency side, as well as recruiters in-house. And as I said, 230,000 jobs in 2020 that we placed. A lot more to come this year, as we can see from the numbers.
Martin, great to chat. Thanks for being on Ticker News today.
Thank you for having me.